pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
The good people, it's the Rise Up Morning Show. We in the building. It's Clancy Chunga. Got some other cat on the side of me. Who is this? Straight out of France. What up? Who you be?
Everybody knows me now. I don't need to introduce myself anymore.
It's like you're a movie star. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know why I be acting like that.
You still can read my name, right? Although some people will be pronouncing it like Bona, right?
We don't want to hear your name pronounced like Bona, brother. No, that ain't cool. Might be a language barrier, but we don't do that over here. Anyway, we got Buddha in the building. As you all can see, he losing his mind early in the morning. You know what I mean? That's what we do around here. Straight out of France. What part of France you in, Buddha?
Yeah, I'm in Paris.
Okay,
I live in the suburbs of Paris. So
in the suburbs of Paris.
Yeah, in front, I don't want to sound like I live close to the Eiffel Tower, you know? Because when you say Paris, some people might be thinking that I'm part of the African bourgeoisie, which
brother,
I'm not part of. Hopefully,
no. We saw the videos with you in front of the Eiffel Tower, brother. It's all good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there was probably a guy who looks like me.
This guy that look like you? No doubt, no doubt. We know about the suburbs because I live in Atlanta. And when you talk to folks in Atlanta or around Atlanta, everybody say, oh, I live in Atlanta. And they be like, yeah, what part, whatever. Then you find out they live in the suburbs. They don't really live in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. So welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show, good people. This is Black Power Media, where we give you that bulletproof truth, because every day is a good day for revolution. In the background, we got my man Isaac on the cut. You know what I mean? Isaac gonna be coming through, drop some jewels, some Black Power breaks and all that. You know what I mean? Instead of break beats, we got Black Power breaks. They don't know nothing about that. You know, so it's your first time tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share the work that we're attempting to do.
Website.
Yes, please visit the website. Definitely. And shout out to Mr. May for keeping the website updated and everything.
And get your copy of Afro.
Yes. Soon as he went to say that, he froze. But definitely get your copy of Afro Pick magazine. I think that was a conspiracy theory right there. It was like, get your copy of Afro, and he just froze up. Afro Pick, as Boona was saying, go to blackpowermedia.org and make sure you download blackpowermedia.org/shop. When we say /shop, we know some of y'all get scared and think we're trying to get you to buy something. But if you do want to shop, that's cool too. However, We got a complimentary magazine. We've had over 2,500 downloads so far. We're grateful for that. Hopefully they're reading
Really?
it.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
quite
man.
impressive.
Hey, man, it's Black Power Media, man. You know what I mean? What you think? I'm surprised you surprised. They think that you in there. That's what it is. They probably like Boona doing the cover photo or the middle, you call it centerfold. So they ran out and got it, man. That's what it was. Boona's not on the centerfold. Those of you like me that don't want to see Boona on the centerfold, he's not there. Don't worry about it. But
I think that's an issue of your mic.
Issue of my mic? Oh,
yeah.
You know what? You might be right. You know what's crazy? This is amazing. Y'all see me pulling the cord right here?
Okay, that's it.
Look at this. Look at this. I dropped the mic.
Better.
Yeah, I sound better? Thank you,
Yeah.
Boona. Now, all this time we've been talking before we start recording, you ain't say nothing about the mic.
I wasn't
wait till
sure
I get recorded.
You or me, you know? People always blame me whenever there's a problem.
Hey, man.
I got a new mic. People cannot see on the screen.
Oh, you got the new mic now?
Yeah, I got a brand new mic.
So you just stunting. You want everybody to know how clear you were.
So,
Okay. I see how this thing go, man. That's those French mics. I remember your man was on here before. But anyway, definitely 2,500 downloads so far. We have the second edition will be dropping in another week. Another week and a half. Yeah, so we're doing every second week of the month.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So definitely next issue, Real Dope Magazine. I would tell y'all who's on the cover, but I'm not even gonna do that because then who knows? But definitely, it's gonna be bigger, it's getting better. We appreciate the feedback we've gotten. Any of you that's interested in writing for the magazine, make sure that you contact us. You can go to the website and say, look, I'm interested in writing, for the magazine or whatever. I got some content, bring it on. Anybody interested in advertising, so on and so forth, definitely come on. What we're doing right now is we're moving towards more of a communication situation so that we want to prove to you that we're not just a YouTube channel. We're not just on here shouting and making noise. We want to make sure that we're getting that information out. Word. So did you check it out yet, Boona, or what? We know you. Boona, like I'm the last one to download. I'm waiting to see what everybody else got to say about it.
I'm one of those 2,500 people who downloaded it.
All right.
The first one. Anyway.
Okay, no doubt. We're gonna go to Boona house and check and make sure that issue of Afro Pick is there. I want to say too, next week, September 12th, if you're in the New York area, there's a 80-year birthday commemoration press conference, so on and so forth, for Leonard Peltier, political prisoner who's been locked up almost 50 years. So if you're in New York at the People's Forum on September 12th, I believe it's next Thursday at 5 p.m. EST. Make sure you come through the People's Forum. A lot of good people will be there. Some you like, some you won't like. But as long as you come in peace, you'll be all right. But anyway, what's happening over on your side of the world, Boona?
Yeah, I updated people yesterday, but unfortunately you were not around, right? So there is nothing much I can do.
So I don't get the news since I wasn't here yesterday. See this thing go? Well, we did do a live the other day that was dope, man. So we had Daruba Ben Wahad on, and he asked me about you. I told him, I said, man, Boona's somewhere. I don't know what Boona doing, so but it's all right though.
Yeah, so yesterday we had a great show with Matthew Alford, who's based at the University of Bath, if I'm not mistaken. Really great show on the whole Hollywood propaganda industry and how they're working with the national security system in the U.S., to promote, agenda that are consistent with the interests of U.S., military. So, yeah, it was a really great show. And at the end of the show, he mentioned that some of his books were translated into French. I just checked before we actually they were publishing very good publishing houses, very radical. So I'm very
Yes.
excited about it, and hopefully we can have him here in France to talk about his books because I think, yeah, it was really a great show yesterday, and we're very grateful to the brother Isaac who invited him yesterday to talk about a lot of different issues, including how through movies he mentioned a lot of different movies that some of them I watch, okay,
Right.
but I did not watch it the way that he described it, okay, or I did pay attention to some scenes to according to him were very important. Okay, I watched it from different angle.
Mm.
So yeah, it was very interesting to get that background because there are a lot of the messages that are conveyed through those movies and that we're not necessarily aware of or don't pay enough attention. So it's part of the
Amen.
cultural war. So we have to be ready for that. I mean, we have to be prepared at least not to fall into the trap of the propaganda that has been spread by Hollywood you know in collaboration with the U.S. Army and the whole national security apparatus in the U.S. So it was really a great show, and yeah, looking forward to having him back and have the type of guests that we had yesterday. I mean, guests so far we've been having so many great guests. I'm not saying that just congratulate ourselves. Right? This might sound like we're the best, right?
I mean,
But
we might be. I'm not sure. I'm not going to.
that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be part of this collective because we get the opportunity to have people that I probably wouldn't have talked to if you were not for the Rise Up Morning Show. So I'm grateful to all of you guys, grateful to the viewers who are watching, commenting, sharing, liking, subscribing, downloading. After I did, I was the first one to download you, by the way. So
I'm about to go check on that. You know what I'm saying? I'm
yeah,
looking.
I,
I'm
I
looking.
I use different name. I
You
don't want
use the alias, huh?
right.
What you,
So I
what you
use
use?
I use a name that you'll not even recognize.
You use Kalanji, right? Like I don't even remember downloading this. What happened? But
Yeah,
no doubt. I appreciate what you just said because it's important. I don't think a lot of people understand the importance of the work and the efforts that that the comrades are making on this platform. Of course, there's a lot of different shows and a lot of people that are doing great work throughout the diaspora, and
mm,
we're trying to add on, or excuse me, we're adding on, and we're using our own different formulas and styles and so on and so forth. And no, we don't think we the best, but we definitely we definitely making a mark, and that's
yeah,
without question. And we understand what we up against because of the fact that when you're talking about some of the topics that we're dealing with, we've literally had people on here broadcasting live from the continent, from Venezuela,
yeah,
from Europe.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
From Europe, from
All over,
all
all
over.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah, different dialects, etc. So,
and that's very important because that's part of our revolutionary tradition. Because when
yes,
you're in a particular context, if I take example of the U.S., it's so big. I mean, such a big country. It's an empire, so you can basically have a show that is focusing only on issues, uh, you know, within the U.S., although it's having global impact. But you could have also had only guests from the U.S. I think
right.
would have been more than enough. But then giving these perspectives from people all over the world, I think it's just yeah, it's fantastic. It's a way for us to perpetuate the tradition of our ancestors, our
No
radical
doubt,
ancestors, right?
no doubt, no doubt. And for the viewers, listen, man. These brothers and sisters that you see on here on Black Power Media, of course, the Rise Up Morning Show, of course, Professor Griff. Shout out to Professor Griff. Who,
Mm,
if folks aren't familiar, he has the new show Arm the Masses. It comes on Wednesdays, so make sure you catch yesterday's show. You know what I'm saying? Because
mm,
Professor Griff has been consistent. And the thing is, you have a brother like that who comes out of the group Public Enemy. Public Enemy is a group that impacted folks like myself and so many others because they were kind of like the first international hip hop group to come in a tradition of a Fela or a Bob Marley or a Peter Tosh, so on and so forth, but from the realm of hip hop. These are
mm,
brothers, and sisters, sister soldiers as well, who put in work. Professor Griff had to go through a lot. You know what I mean? Just being part of that group, assassination attempts. You know, having Israeli forces, trying to take him out. To this day, as far as just his whole politics and his whole, getting him kicked out the group, so on and so forth, and trying to cut into his resources, his funds, and affect the way he feeds his family, so on and so forth. But here it is. You can find him on Wednesdays here at noon on the morning show. You have folks like Dr. Joy James, who has a plethora, a gang of work, in academia, who has been putting in serious work and pointing out unpopular, issues and bringing that truth. Her and her crew, decolonizing feminism. That it's a, it's powerful. We have our brother broadcasting out of France, Vital Hoops. Our brother Fernando. And just so many other shows, and we have so much more that will be coming your way. So I'm saying all of that to say, all of us on this platform right now, we're doing this out of pure love. But I am requesting and suggesting some support, because eventually we would like to see our brothers and sisters be paid to do what we do. New equipment, take this to another level, so on and so forth. So if you find it in your heart, soul, and pocket, make sure that you contribute to what it is we're doing. Because, of course, we're doing this out of love, but everybody got people to take care of, families to feed, so on and so forth. So, help us grow, help us stay here.
Your mic is messing up again. Yeah, maybe I should send you mine.
That's another reason.
It's gonna take.
Oh, look at my mic.
Yeah, that's what I need to for.
On that alone, I need a new mic. Help me stay here. They about to kick me off the show. You know how they do with me, boy. They replace me quick. Cool's already in process. I just got here. Anyway,
now they definitely got a reason to send some.
They got definitely a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like you heard what Buddha said, and I was gonna say we take francs and all that, Francos, but I think that's old news now. We straight euros, huh? Euros, dollars. Can we get rubles still or what?
No, you can't, because Black Power Media would be under sanctions automatically.
You're right. Man, woo, man. We want to talk about that. You know what I mean? They'll be saying I did it, like Kalanji did it. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about it be your fault. It's always my fault. But anyway, welcome to Black Power Media. Welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show. We're gonna take a Black Power break, and we're talking about what's going on internationally. We got some news and some views for you. So stick around. Tell a friend to tell a friend that we here again. Rise up.
Rise up.
Political system like that tells us that we must begin to reevaluate the whole connotation that's been given to politics in this country. See, politics does not mean the Republican and Democratic Party. Politics does not mean the city and state government. Politics goes into something much further beyond that. Politics goes into what happens to your life every day. You see, it's a political decision that most black people in Harlem are junkies. That's a political decision. It's a political decision that black people were forced to be athletes. That's a political decision. It's a political decision that black people cannot occupy offices, high offices in this country as they are called. That's a political decision. But note here, not that, that would make any difference in terms of the whole thing of black people occupying offices. Because when you begin to understand the type of system that operates in this country, then you understand that it's not the individual who manipulates the system. It's the system who manipulates that individual. See, if Cleaver or Dick Gregory had become president in this country, it would make absolutely no difference, because America would still be in the war in Vietnam, because the country operates off what's known as the military-industrial complex, which says that war is profitable, which says that USS Steel must make steel for tanks, because over 70% of the people employed in this country are either directly or indirectly employed by the military. That's the politics of the economy of this country. When oppressed people begin to evaluate politics, we must understand that we have to create a politics that's relevant to us. We must create a politics that's relevant to our lifestyle. We must create a politics that's relevant to what we do every day. So when we talk about politics, when we talk about the political reality of the black community, we are talking about something that's beyond Democratic and Republican Party. And in that sense, we must understand that we must incorporate a revolutionary ideology that pushes this type of political know-how and political knowledge in the black community. I want to talk about that ideology at this point. And it has to be an ideology of revolutionary nationalism. See, this country fosters the idea of competitive individualism. In other words, like he divides people. He divides. He tells you, be an individual, do your own thing. You cannot do your own thing if your own thing is not the right thing. You cannot do your own thing. You have to understand, one of the most counter-revolutionary things that came out last year was the whole slogan of do your own thing. This is what black people have been doing for years. Now, if your own thing does not happen to be the thing that's right for the struggle, then it's incorrect. You can't do your own thing. See, people run around here talking about, I'm going to do my own here. The junkies standing on the corner nod and say, I'll let you do your thing, let me do my thing. You have to understand that we must begin to talk about building a nation. We exist as a nation. The reason they kill black people are not because they exist as wealthy or poor individuals. They kill them because they're black. So what you have to understand is that whether we recognize it or not, we constitute a nation. We must begin to employ nationalism in our struggle. Nationalism merely says that, we are talking about usness or we-ness. Black people can no longer talk about I. See, that whole individual thing has to be thrown out. This is, what one thing that college students have to understand, because most of the cats who come down talking about, I got my stuff together, is cats who are coming out of college. You have to understand that, if you're speaking, you have to be speaking for the struggle. You cannot be talking for yourself. Because I know what's going to happen if you get caught out there by yourself. You're going to be looking for everybody else at that point.
Man, listen, that right there is right on time. Y'all hear me good? My mic good? Okay. Yeah. So for folks who aren't familiar with that, that's H. Rap Brown. Formerly H. Rap Brown. His name is Imam Jamil Al-Amin. He's one of my leaders. One of the reasons why I'm in Atlanta right now. He's a political prisoner who's currently serving a life sentence, 100-something years right now. And it's funny. Deruba was talking about him the other day about how they with comrades going back to the prison and so on and so forth, going back to the early days, back in the 70s and whatnot. Listening to what he said in regards to the whole individualism thing. And I'm gonna put this out here. I very recently had an issue with an individual that we would consider an elder. I'm putting it out there because of the fact that we're talking about how we deal with this thing, right? And the thing is, we have protocol, we have structure, and we were working on a coalition piece, right? And when you have structure and when you have protocol, and when you have, when you're a part of an organized front, you can't just move how you want to move. You can't just do the things you want to do. I, as an individual, it's irrelevant about what I want to do as an individual when I represent an organization or I represent a coalition. Before we just jump out in the middle of something, we got to make sure that we are all in line with it. Because Everybody that's for the same thing might not be against the same thing, and everybody against the same thing might not be for the same thing. So you can't speak for folks if you're not sanctioned, if you're not authorized to do so. But what happens is, like Imam Jamil, like H. Rap Brown was just saying, you have folks that's on some I, right? And it cannot work like that, because we didn't get into this situation as individuals. We are staying in this situation because we're moving as individuals. Until we move collectively, you can't talk about Pan-Africanism and just do what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, this ain't the Isley Brothers. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. This is our people's liberation movement. And I'm saying this because it's a lesson, right? I'm not saying this because I'm trying to disrespect anyone. I'm not saying this because I think I know something that other folks don't know. It's, if we look at nature itself, nature moves in unison, in unity. We had a situation where some bees attacked recently. You know what I mean? We hit that nest, and all of a sudden, we didn't even know the nest was there. Hit it with a rake, and all of a sudden, bees came from everywhere. They attacked, but not only that, they swarmed. They came inside the house. They like, oh, you want this problem? Let's give it to you. You understand what I'm saying? But it was a collective thing, so we respect that. The ants, they move together. You know what I'm saying? They we have to move together. We don't have the luxury of being the spokespersons for African people, because there is no one spokesperson. Within organizations, we have ranks, right? Within organizations, the organization I represent, the FTP movement, right? Or the Siafu movement. In one particular class, I might be in a position of leadership. In another particular class, I am a student. You understand what I'm saying? So we respect that. Not that, oh, well, I tell folks what to do. So that's not how this thing works. I don't just get up on the mic and just start talking just because I got a mouth. It's certain things you're not going to hear me say on Black Power Media or anywhere else, because of the fact that I represent something bigger than myself. And until we understand that this thing is bigger than us as individuals, we will continue to lose. I'm saying this, Boona, because of the fact that we put our families' lives on the table.
Yeah.
We put our ancestors' name and lineage on the table. Our future. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not about what you think about me as an individual. I can care less. Who cares about that? This ain't a popularity contest. We're not here to see who got the flyest YouTube channel or who get the most numbers. That's corny. The reality is, either you want to get free or you want to look good losing. You want to win or look good losing, and that's who we are. So again, that particular clip right there, it resonated and it was timely, because we have to be on point. There is no man is an island. Never in the history, not even mythologically. If we look at anything from religion to civil rights, King had an organization. You're a Christian, Christ had an organization. Disciples. Everybody had an organization in order. King wasn't by himself. He had the NCF. You know what I'm saying? So again, no man is an island. We get it twisted, and we that some one man is going to come save us.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. But anyway, go ahead, Bruno. Forgive me, man. I know I went on my...
No worries. Really appreciate. We've talked about this in the past, and I really appreciate that you bring this again on the table, because I think this is a message that have to be conveyed whenever we can do it, because we live in a era of mass individualism, and especially with the social media. Now, a lot of people got which is good, to share information, but they tend to be isolated from the... Some people think that having your own podcast it's an act of... It can be an act of resistance, but it's not enough. Because like you said, if the system is coming against you, you have no one to defend you. I mean, your viewers will not be at your doorstep. They won't be collecting petitions to...
Unless they're the police, but go ahead.
No, it's very important that we keep organizing. But unfortunately, the advantage of internet is that it's making it easy. Sorry, for you and I to be in touch, communicating. You are different parts of the African family, African diaspora. But one of the setbacks is that a lot of people will focus on their individual visibility, okay, their individual achievements, quote unquote, and will tend to marginalize or will tend to underestimate the importance of collective work. There is a saying in Wolof, which is my mother tongue, one of the most widely spoken, which says that one hand alone cannot clap, right? You need two hands to clap, right? So if you do things on your own, it won't be successful. So you need an organization. And like you said, Malcolm had an organization. Malcolm actually had two. Okay, he had the after from the nation of, oh, we lost Kalanji there, so I'll just keep doing my monologue. So I was saying that Malcolm had two organizations after he left the Nation of Islam. He had the organization Afro American Unity, which was uh, modeled, which has inspired from the organization African Unity, founded in Addis Ababa in 1963. So Malcolm set up the organization of African American Unity. So that was the kind of political secular organization, but he also had the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. So he actually had two organizations. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture was an organization. I mean, all the Marcus Garvey, of course, the United Negro Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, right? Any leader that you can think of had an organization. So, despite the fact that those organizations had some very charismatic, famous leaders or spokesperson, they were not alone, and they couldn't have achieved the fame or the status they have eventually achieved if they had done everything by themselves. So I think it's very important. It's also remind us the importance of managing, well, whenever possible, our own convictions, because at the end of the day, we have different characters, we have different backgrounds, but as long as we committed to the liberation of our people, we have to focus on the priorities, and the priority is that we are facing an enemy that is powerful, that is organized, okay, and then can crush us whenever they want if we're not organized. So the fact that we're not organized makes it even easier for them to get to us. Okay, so yeah, that's why it's very important for us to not lose track of what we want and where we're going, because otherwise just making the system, we already we've been split, we've been dispersed throughout the world, right? Some of us are in Europe, others are on the mother continent, others in Brazil, but we wherever we are, we always find ourselves in the same economic and social situation. I mean, some of us might be doing well, but overall, if you go to Europe, if you go to South America, if you go to North America, you will find, and even in Africa, find the Africans, the blacks, are the most impoverished population. So our destiny is the same. Although we have some traders, some sellouts within our own communities, like every community, the black community in that regard is not specific. Although we have those that what Glenn Ford used to call the black misleadership class. Some of them who are doing well, but the overall picture, the overall situation of African people is the same wherever you go, in the globe. So that's why we need unity. We need determination. So for our among our viewers who are watching us, if you don't belong to an organization, please check around you which organization you can join. Which has revolutionary politics. Aimed at emancipating our people. Do not stay alone. Do not think that you can achieve things by yourself. I'm a member of two organizations, by the way. So it's not only because I just want to be a member of be part of organizations, because I have realized that it's the most effective way to bring about change. Okay, you might not agree with everybody in that organization. Okay, but at the end of the day, you have to, you have to be in a collective to be productive and to move forward.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, no, that is I appreciate you saying what you're saying. And the wild thing about you and I being here right now is that our very presence and what it is we're talking about is pointing out the contradictions. Because you being in France, me being here in the US, um, and we're talking about the same issues going on at the same time. For white folks, if you say you live in France or you live in the United States, you should be high on the hog. If you are if you are in Europe or you are in the US, then that means that you should be successful. That's
Mm,
if you have a certain you. Because remember, they talk about all these other third world countries,
yeah,
these third
exactly.
world nations, right? And we have people who are homeless. I'm sure they're in France as well,
Yeah.
but just here in Atlanta alone, you can drive downtown or not even go downtown. You got some folks sleeping on the sidewalk. Yeah, some folks living in tents, the whole nine. I've seen entire families sleeping on the sidewalk when it's like 28, 30 degrees outside.
Damn.
Man, women, and children sleeping on the damn sidewalk. You know what I
Wow.
mean? This is Atlanta. This is the United States. You know what I mean? So when we talk about these conquerors, these megalomaniacs, and these warmongers, we have to be clear that we are at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And so why do we resist? We resist because of the situations and the conditions. We
Mm,
resist because of the fact that we know that it is we're dealing with individuals and organizations and institutions that are hell bent on on our lives, on the destruction of us as humans, as life.
mm,
They're looking to totally annihilate us. And I think that the Africans and colonized people that exist, even in these two particular colonies that we're in, they walk around like we live in victory. And like
mm,
this place is and the thing is that, well, I'd rather live here than other places in the world, other places where these colonies destroyed, where they
mm,
decimated, where they
mm,
had their greasy palms and fingerprints on it. So even
mm.
when you look at some of these countries or whatever, or regions that may be considered impoverished, when you look at it from a historical standpoint, either these particular colonies that we live in bled them out and drained them, or because they resisted, they made sure that they wouldn't be able to thrive or survive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been defeated many times in history, and this is not, I'm not saying that to blame our ancestors because actually, I think we've talked about this in the past. The type of resistance strategies and techniques that the African people have displayed throughout the centuries is, well, I don't want to sound like Afrocentric, but if you really study the type of resistance that our people have developed throughout the centuries is really, it's an impressive record, and people
Mhm.
do not realize the type of uh, turmoil, the type of trouble we've been through. Because, I was reading recently Dr. Gerald Holmes' book titled "The Apocalypse of Settler Colonialism," okay, which I really recommend. Probably have him, on the show talk about that book. I think, and he was saying that imagine if countries like Canada, okay, China, the US, Russia powers had their best elements of the working force, okay, being kidnapped and brought to another part of the world, okay, being basically decimated. Do you think that China, the US, or all those so-called first world countries, okay, developed countries, do you think they would be thriving the way they have done over the past decades, if not centuries? So I think it's also very important for us to, um, you know, not only realize the type of, you know, victimization. I don't really like the word victimization, but I think it's the adequate word that we should be using in this context, or the type of oppression that we've been through, because I think a lot of us are still underestimating what happened. Especially, you had these bourgeois African who are saying, "Oh, this is the past. You don't want to talk. You about the past, and we have to deal with the present." But this is something that we have to realize: the type of, you know, massacre, oppression that we've been through, and also the type of resistance our people have been developing, because this will also help us deal with the present, okay, and also prepare the future. And one last word to conclude. You know, my mother was in the US 2 or 3 months ago. I have some relatives there, and she went there to visit. She told me that she was shocked by a number of homeless Senegalese people she saw in the streets of New York.
Hmm.
And you know, those people came through. They eventually reached the US after a very difficult, and to say the least, trip they had to do through Nicaragua. They went to through Nicaragua after, okay, through Mexico, all those countries, to find themselves being homeless in New York, okay, in the so-called first world. And you know, in these countries, people will keep migrating, because unfortunately, the economic and social situation does not enable, especially the youth, does not enable their people there, especially the youth, to, you know, to make a living. So they have to go, basically. But
Wait,
the type of situation they find themselves in is really
right.
shocking. Those who migrated to the US, she told me she has never seen so many homeless blacks in her life.
That's crazy. Coming from the continent. I want you to, not to cut you off, but to rewind what it is you're saying, because you mentioned Senegalese and other folks coming through Nicaragua, different places. Talk about that process, because again, there are viewers that's checking this out and they don't know that it's a process. Unfortunately, the way the U.S. Will play this thing off, you think that everybody just hopped on airplanes or boats and showed up at the harbor like these Italians did and everything, and the Polish, and everything's all good, and there was really no problems, and they had bags of money that was waiting for them when they got here. Talk about that process, and it sounds insane, but this is the reality of uh, European indoctrination. You know what I'm saying? Either that, or you got to build a wall because they're sneaking under tunnels. But tell us about when you talk about that. What
You know, when we had Dr. Colin West on the show a few weeks ago, he said something very important, which I think people should bear in mind, because it's one of the traps that the white supremacist system is, has been imposing on our people. Unfortunately, many of us have fell into that trap, which is when you have migrants coming to the US, for example. I think I say the US because blacks have been there for over 400 years, right? And many of them being descendants of slaves. So when they go there, they see their brothers and sisters through white supremacist lenses, okay? And some of the brothers and sisters who've been there for forever, I mean, for the descendants of slaves, they also see the Africans through white supremacist lens, okay, which is exactly what you've just described. But if you want to, why you have so many Africans living the continent, you also need not only to study the impact of slavery, but more recent policies, such as the 19 starting from the 1970s, 1980s, the IMF and the World Bank, for example, they imposed on those African countries what they called programs, which basically consisted in cutting public expenditures in education,
what was it
healthcare,
called again? You froze. Say it again.
structural adjustment programs, SAPs. Okay, that's why you have so many Angolan, I don't know if you say Angolan, Angolese, Angolan doctors from Angola who migrated in the US in the 1990s, because the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank basically said there was a debt crisis, okay, back then, starting from 1960s and 1970s and 80s. So they said basically, you guys are in debt. Your debt is not sustainable. We need to structure that debt. So in order for you to have access to credit, you have to implement these policies. Okay. So what those policies eventually brought about was mass impoverishment. Okay. The level of poverty in those countries has skyrocketed. Okay.
Mhm.
The degradation of the quality of public services, such as healthcare, education, public infrastructure. So we basically had many of those so-called white collar workers. They eventually migrated to Western countries. Many, if you come to France, for example, you have a lot of teachers, who came in the 1980s, 90s. They got their degrees, they got their masters or whatever in their home countries, and they came here to teach. And if you go to the US, for example, you have now hundreds, if not thousands, of Africans teaching in the most prestigious universities in the US. Okay, because what happens is that their salary has decreased because of the structural adjustment programs, and then the same people who have imposed those programs, they come because the IMF and the World Banks, as our viewers probably know, they are controlled by the US. Okay, the president of the World Bank, since it was created in 1945, has always been a US citizen. Okay, and it's actually appointed by the president of the US himself. And those institutions, the IMF and the World Bank, have imposed policies, and this is something that we probably need to have a separate session on, that devastated the lives of tens of millions of people around the world, and Africa being the first continent. If you talk about the piracy in Somalia, for example, those are the direct victims. The pirates, the so-called pirates, are the direct victims of these structural adjustment programs, because people could no longer rely upon the state. And unfortunately, with the deepening of the neoliberal agenda, which basically means the same thing, okay, giving your most crucial services to the private sector, okay, because back then all the services that were provided by the state have been privatized, meaning the private sector took over, and obviously it became more expensive, and they decrease in quality, but they increase in price. Okay, so this is the background that people have to bear in mind whenever they try to analyze the why you have so many Africans who are fleeing Africa. And I'm not even mentioning the wars, like when they destroyed the Libya, when they killed Gaddafi and destroyed Libya. Libya was home to hundreds of thousands of African migrants. Some of them have even, probably people will remember, some of them have been lynched on camera. Okay, when Gaddafi was overthrown. I'm not saying that his policy was perfect. He also used to play on that anti-blackness on some occasions when he wanted to deal with the European Union. But anyways, there were a lot of migrants who were going to Libya for work. Many of them had, quite a comfortable life there. But after the destruction of Libya, people had to find other places. Okay, and I'm not even talking about the wars in Africa that are being funded, supported by Western countries. So people are moving because they have no choice. Eventually, all of them wanted to stay in their own country. So they're moving. They're going to Europe. You have tens of thousands dying in the Mediterranean Sea every year. Okay, and all of them are not, working class Africans. Many of them are qualified, quote unquote. They have university degrees, masters, whatever, but they cannot afford living in their own country, so have to move. So when they move, those who are, the luckiest, the 1%, okay, they find themselves who have migrated legally, by the way. They find themselves in prestigious positions, such as those teaching in U.S. universities. That's a microscopic minority, but the majority of them are impoverished. They are stealing, in countries like Panama, in countries like Nicaragua, in countries like Mexico. If you go to Mexico, you'll be impressed by the number of Africans who are stuck there, trying to go to the US. But so yeah, definitely, it's not an easy journey, and people are going to the US because they know where the wealth that was taken from their country is going to. They basically going
following the wealth.
you know
They're like sharks in the diaspora. They talked about how the blood, when it's coming through on the slave ships, the bodies that were inside of the ocean and whatnot, the blood, how the sharks would follow the ships because they know that they can eat. They knew that when they saw those ships.
That's exactly what is happening.
Yeah. They saw those ships. They knew that, there's going to be bodies being thrown over. There's going to be blood. And this is what you're talking about when you talk about the quote unquote migrants, not only from the continent, but from places all over the world, throughout the Caribbean, throughout Latin America, so on and so forth. And they're coming here to make efforts to survive. And when in many cases, they end up victims, sometimes even by their own people who are in cahoots. Because like you pointed out a little while ago, you said that some of the teachers or some of that come here are some of the same ones who assisted in imposing the IMF ways and man, just their policies, man, and it's insane. But then folks will say some crazy shit like black folks don't get together, like Latins and all that. That's not true. It's affecting on a global level. It's just you see what you see and you think that everyone's sticking together. Europeans stick together because they're about domination. A lot of Asians will stick together because they're about domination. You understand? So it's a special kind of people who usually when you talk about them sticking together, oftentimes it's at the expense of folks like you and I. But we don't see that part because we're too busy talking about what we can't do. You checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. Boone and I got us started this morning. You know what I mean? I think we was talking about going to the news. We got Isaac in the background. He's sweating over there trying to push the button like, yo, what's up with the news? I think we're gonna go to another quick Black Power break and we'll be right back at you. You're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show, Black Power Media. You don't get it like this nowhere else, so don't even act like you know. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Read a couple of poems out of my book for you. In the shadowed night, sometimes in the shadowed night, I become spirit. The walls, the bars, the gratings dissolve into light, and I unloosen my soul and fly through the inner darkness of my being. I become transparent, a bright shadow, a bird of dreams singing from the tree of life. The knife of my mind. I have no presence. I have only a past and perhaps a future. The present has been taken from me. I'm left in an empty space whose darkness I carve at with the knife of my mind. I must carve myself anew out of the razor wire nothingness. I will know the ecstasy and the pain of freedom. I will be ordinary again. Yes, ordinary. That terrifying condition where all is possibility, where the present exists and must be faced.
That was Leonard Peltier. Man, just looking at this brother right now, it is wild because just hearing that piece right there was it's heartbreaking to a degree, to an extent. Um, I mentioned that we visited him this past June around his parole hearing, and that he'll be 80 years old next week on September 12th. For folks who missed the beginning of the program, uh, in New York at the People's Forum on Thursday the 12th, on his birthday, there will be a press conference. There will be a panel. There'll be a number of uh, cultural workers or artists that will join us for his born date celebration. Um, it's criminal because this man has all types of ailments right now. All types of ailments. He's pretty much blind. He has all types of bodily issues, and the U.S. government is holding him. They're holding on to him because they would like to see him die.
In prison.
Exactly. They would like to see what we call death by incarceration. You know what I mean? They would like to see folks like Mumia and folks like Imam Jamil Alameen, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, and folks like Joy Powell. They would like to see them die in prison because they can't break them. So when they can't break you, they'll make all types of efforts to assassinate you in whatever way they can. In whatever way they can. And folks aren't clear about that. They have no understanding. So it's almost abstract when you talk about folks like Leonard Peltier. It's almost as if, that's a shame, and we feel bad and all of this type stuff. But in reality, these are humans. These are human beings, and they are suffering day by day. Yeah. So we definitely would we need you all to support Leonard Peltier and to support his committee, his work, because it's ongoing. It's an ongoing struggle. You're talking about a man who's been locked up close to 50 years.
Yeah.
Remember, I just said he's about to be 80. He's been locked up close to 50 years. That's insane.
Longer than I did.
Yeah. I mean, literally. And damn near as long as I've been on the planet. He's been locked up since I was a little boy. I'm talking about like maybe like 5 years old, somewhere around there. This is how long he's been incarcerated. And again, their efforts is to try to break him. But
not only him, but the whole movement, because
without a doubt,
indigenous, those are people. He's basically been fighting for the rights of the people who own the land. Whether other people like it or not, basically. So, and I really like that the fact that we've mentioning him almost, on every single show that we've done, because it also reminds us how interconnected the struggle of the blacks and the indigenous people are, right? Because I think some of us might lose track of that sometimes, but it is really important for us to realize that the vanguard of the anti-colonial movement in the U.S., if there is such a movement, you guys know better than I, of course, has to be the people who were there first before anyone else, right? And I think, and this takes us back to the issues that we mentioned about the migrants who are going to the U.S. and tend to, consider the U.S. as a paradise, okay, and forget how that nation was built in the first place, Okay, I don't want to sound too judgmental there, but I think one of the mistakes a lot of people are doing is to think that the US will be a heaven for them, whereas it has been hell for the blacks and the indigenous. It has been heaven for some Europeans
Yeah.
because United Nations is basically a pan-European. We're trying to build Pan-Africanism, not to build, but to reinforce or to perpetuate Pan-Africanism. But the construction of the US as a state, settler colonial states, is probably one of the most pan-European projects in history. Okay, so I think that anyone in the US who is serious, who is honestly and sincerely committed to anti-colonial liberation, they have to start with people like Leonard Peltier and all the people who've been incarcerated. Because Leonard Peltier is only the tip of the iceberg, right? Because there are so many of them who've been incarcerated. The movement has been repressed. There have been massacres, not only in the U.S. but also Canada, that we don't really often talk about. But it has also been very, cruel to the indigenous people in the US. And that being said, I've talked too much as usual. Passing it to our brother Isaac, who's has both ancestries.
Yeah,
Isaac in the building. What's up, man? You
going
Isaac,
on,
like,
man?
look, man,
What's going on?
I'm coming through like crazy horse. What's happening,
Well,
bro?
I hope what I was right.
No, I want to thank both you guys. And just first and foremost, for the ones that probably didn't hear it in the back, and are still probably skeptical. There is solidarity between red power and black power. When we look at what's happening to Leonard Peltier, and I just want to highlight something that he said within that poem. He said his present was taken from him. That's not just his present as well. The present that Jamil Al-Amin had, that was stripped from him. Mumia, so when we look at the context of we spent so much effort, the diaspora, whether you directly or indirectly spend so much time and effort and energy lifting the masses to understand the importance of making sure that Julian Assange was free. That's the same smoke that I need individuals to have for Leonard Peltier, for Imam, for Jamil Al-Amin, for Kwame Shakur, for individuals that have dedicated their life to behind but while being confined, like they're animals of some sort, what this system classifies them as.
Yeah.
Still being able to do what is needed. And so I highly encourage individuals to go out and find books that are like not just this, but go and read Leonard Peltier's book for you to understand that Leonard Peltier and I'm drawing a blank, DeLorean, if I'm not mistaken, and Kwame Ture sat down. There's actual pictures in this book that I could reference that speaks to those.
Can you remind us the title of the book? Because I think you showed it very quickly.
Yeah, it's Afro-Indigenous History of the United States, but within that context, we see individuals, or we see the Black Power movement. Sorry for the background noise too. I apologize because I was not supposed to be on screen.
All good.
We see the likes of, I mean, I wish there was a picture of Winnie and him, but that's a different story for a different day. There's so many pictures that I could go through, especially this one. This is one of my favorites. I'm trying to see if I can get that one blown up. Right there. That's a really cool image.
It's only the same book, right?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same book.
I've ordered that book. I should be receiving it.
Very soon. Then I think me and you should do a breakdown from an international perspective and also from someone that's from that point. But I just wanted to highlight that their futures are the only thing that they rely on. Their presence were stripped from them, as Leonard Peltier states. So we have to look at that. Even our livelihoods are stripped, living under the conformity of white fucking hegemony. So again, theirs is just 100 times more, 1,000 times more, living under that. The fact that I have to hear that Leonard Peltier is blind, damn near blind, that Mumia is in the condition that he's in, you know, I don't want to know the condition that Imam is in. I apologize for the background noise as well.
That's
Well, I
fine.
can't hear anything. I think it's fine.
This is a family show, bro. Chill out. But I want to point out too, to your point, not to cut your build, but in the background we see the official website, which is freeleonardpeltiernow.org, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. As you can see, there are a few videos that we suggest that you all watch to kind of learn more about his case. This video here, Warrior, the life of Leonard Peltier, was put together by Susie Bear. Susie Bear will also be with us in New York on this coming September 12th for his birthday, for Lynn's birthday. She's on the ad hoc committee along with Ward Churchill, our sister Paulette, myself, and others. You know, so we will be in the building pushing this platform for Lynn. I also want to, on this site, you can also find suggested reading materials and resources
Mm.
that you should check out. Of course, you have prison writings, my life in my own image. Excuse me, my life is my Sundance by Leonard, edited by Hartley Arden. You have In the Spirit of Crazy Horse. You have The Trial of Leonard Peltier, and you have a very important book that every African and Native inside the U.S. and abroad should have, and that's Agents of Repression.
Russian, yeah.
Ward Churchill, who's been on this platform on Black Power Media on a couple different occasions. But these are folks who, these are books that you should check out. Ward Churchill, as far as the whole Agents of Repression, breaks down COINTELPRO, breaks down the FBI's war against the Black Panther Party and AIM, which is the American Indian Movement. So it's very important for folks to get behind not only Leonard Peltier and Mumia, and as Isaac mentioned, Imam Jamel Al-Amin, formerly H. Rap Brown. Part of the reason Kamal Siddiqui and so many others, part of the reason why we do this show and why we have this platform is to keep our comrades, our brothers and sisters, African and indigenous people around the world at the helm, at the forefront, and to remind the viewers that we are real life activists, organizers, freedom fighters, etc. And we're not just doing this for views. We're not doing this for likes and all of that type of stuff just to be seen. The deal is, how do we organize and come to some point of unity where we can, take this to the next level? Our ancestors have done it. They've done the job. You know what I mean? And we still call on our ancestors to do our work. You know what I mean? We can pay homage to our ancestors, but let the ancestors relax. It's like, oh, we want to call on the ancestors to do such and such. You mean you work me to death, and then even in death, you're going to keep calling on me to work? Man, you know what I'm saying?
I think that's actually something that Daruba mentioned. Like, we need to actually start focusing on contemporary, understandings. As much as we should rely on, our ancestors, we should also, formulate at the same time that this is an ever-going struggle. And so if we consistently keep falling for this nostalgic historical approach to unity, we're going to fall to the wayside, as we have, consistently when it comes to struggle. And so there's actually another book, if you don't mind, I'd like to mention. Chairman O'Malley Ishatella highlighted this book in one of his speeches. And I believe it's called The Handbook for Counterintelligence for New Guinea. And it's literally goes up how they're gonna fuck up New Guinea. I'm not even like, I can't put it any more than it's like what they're gonna do, how they're gonna do it. And so I believe I have the name right. I believe it's the Counterinsurgency Handbook for New Guinea, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's another book that I highly mention. There's another one as well. I think it's Dialectics of Black Repression. I think that's what it's called. And so that's something that I highly advise individuals to read. So yeah.
Right on, right on. Yeah, no, and I appreciate first of all you digging up that poem. That was a definitely a good piece for folks who haven't heard Leonard's voice. And I want to say from sitting down with him and hearing his voice on the legal calls, etc. A lot of times we have this image of what a political prisoner is. You know what I'm saying? And I want you to know, and hopefully it don't come off any kind of way, but Leonard is no sucker. He's not sitting around begging white folks to get him to liberate him. You know what I'm saying? He just got hit with uh, another 15-year parole piece. So they're like, look, um, we want you to basically to bow down and beg for mercy, so on and so forth. And he's not about to do that because he's innocent. And he's the type of brother that he's not going to admit guilt when he's not guilty. You know what I'm saying? So he would unfortunately rather die on his feet than his knees. That's not unfortunate. It is the reality of things. It takes a brave individual who, here it is, like I said, he's about to be 80, and they're telling him to come back for this parole hearing, the next parole hearing in 15 years. So damn near 95 years old. With all kinds of ailments he have right now, and we pray that he makes it that far. But the brother has some serious ailments. And meanwhile, you got folks arguing about dumb shit. Whose YouTube channel is the best? Who they don't like? What they don't like? What the fuck are you talking about? Part of my English. You know what I'm saying? So he's not the sucker. Some of us are the suckers. You understand what I'm saying? Because we're not taking, as Pac would say, Tupac said, I take this war shit deeply. You understand? We don't take it deeply. It's not personal for us. You know what I mean? So they can hold a Mumia for 40 plus years. And he literally was taken off of death row, and they had him on death row for 10 extra years. This is how diabolical these motherfuckers are. Aranza Bowers, who I'm hoping that we'll get on the platform soon, served 50 years, 20 years past his release date. He was literally between the release gates when they said they got a call from the U.S. Attorney General. Since then, it was 6 U.S. Attorney Generals before he was finally released earlier this year. Now, I'm grateful to know and say that our brother's in good health. I haven't talked to him in a minute, but we was talking at one point every day, and, he sounds sharp and he sounds ready. And I think it's about time for him to come on the show. So I'm going to definitely reach out to him because, sometimes we have to gain clarity. You got Jalil Muntaqeen, who's been on the platform, of course, one of our OGs and comrades. Another one did 50 years. You know what I'm saying? Daruba did 19, 20 years. This is real life. You know what I mean? So we have to really get a grip. So I appreciate you raising up Leonard Peltier today. We will, of course, it is our duty to continue to keep our political prisoners at the forefront, because any of the viewers that's checking us out right now, any of us can become a political prisoner. It's that simple. It's that real. And some of us on this screen right now, have had our issues with quote unquote authorities and law enforcement over the past year or so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, more than one of us. I'm not going, we ain't hopping out like that, but I'm just letting you know that this shit is very real. It's not a game. They're clear. It can be something simple, but they're clear who to target because they feel the energy, they feel the spirit. You don't even have to know your name. It's like when you see a pit bull, a few things in life will have your full attention. When you look over and you see a pit bull just moving by itself, that pit bull got your attention. When you hear this international sound, click, clack, no matter where you at, when you hear that, no matter what you doing, you will stop what you doing because you know that sound. That's that sound of that shotgun. You know what I'm saying? You ain't even got to fire it. All you got to do is hear it, and you know what time it is. That's a universal sound. You know what I mean? So certain things will have your attention. We are that round in the chamber. We are that jacking of the shotgun. You understand what I'm saying? We, as Marcus Mosiah Garvey talked about, when he said you might have the lion in the cage, but I left many cubs in the bush. Where are those cubs in the bush? Anyway, you're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. Y'all don't get it like this in the morning nowhere, do you? I know. But anyway, we gotta go to some news. What y'all think? Can we hit some news up? Or folks be saying we talk too much and we ain't talking about no news. What's up? You got something for us, Boona?
Yeah, maybe we can talk about the ambassador of Mali, the UN Security Council, talking about how the funding of the Ukraine war by the West is fueling terrorism in the Sahel. So our viewers probably remember that I think we've discussed it last week or 2 weeks ago that Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, three member states of the Alliance of Sahelian States, have basically cut off their diplomatic relations with Ukraine. And this is because Ukrainian authorities have publicly, okay, on camera, been rejoicing the death of Malian soldiers, so in West Africa, alongside their Russian allies, tens of them, who was slaughtered by armed militia in the northern part of Mali, those militias that the government of Mali consider as terrorists, right? So I'm just going to read a few paragraphs of this article that people can find on the Al Mayadeen website, Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken. So Malian ambassador to the United Nations, Umar Daou, sorry if I mispronounced the name, expressed concern on Friday that the weapons provided to Ukraine by the collective West are eventually supporting terrorism in the Sahel area. Okay, so the Sahel, for those who don't know, it's that strip across Mali, Niger. It covers West and part of East Central Africa. Okay, from Mali to Chad, basically. Mali, Niger, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, and Chad. Okay, basically. There are other countries that are also, but that is a chunk of the Sahel. So Dawood stated at a session of the United Nations Security Council that is alarmed, quote, because it's been clearly established that a good part of the weapons end up fueling terrorism and crime in the Sahel. Okay, Mali has been experiencing terror insurgency for over a decade, which the French security mission failed to combat. And this is very important. I'll come back to it. As a result, the violence spread to Mali's neighboring countries, Burkina Faso and Niger, prompting the three nations' military rulers to serve their ties with France and form the alliance of Sahel states while cooperating with Russia in countering terrorism. So I think we can stop there. A very few points that I wanted to mention. First, the fact that the French troops have been there for over a decade. The terrorism has increased in that region. So now people need to understand that it's not only a military war, it's also a propaganda war. Because since the French army has to leave, basically, peaceful means demonstrations, people in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, basically camping on the military bases of the French army and also French embassy to ask them to leave. Okay, so now there's a whole propaganda war of the French media, the French military. They're investing billions in that psychological war. They're creating fake Facebook, Instagram, TikTok accounts and they're assuming that publicly. I mean,
Right.
so they say we have to win that war against Russia. So they basically funding, clips, videos, articles, sometimes artificial intelligence to attack those countries. And also in the French media, for those of us who've been fortunate to follow, the way they've covered this conflict, is that they basically trying to explain that since the French have left, okay, the security situation has never been so degraded. Okay, so this is also part of the psychological propaganda war that people need to be aware of, because most of the articles, you know, Al-Maidin was chosen, purposely because not CNN, So most of the articles that you will, I'm not going to mention all the news outlet, but most of the articles that you will read on mainstream media will be basically playing the same textbook, saying that since the Russian came in, the security situation has become worse. The Malians and the people of Burkina Faso and Niger are engraved with Africans, engraved with blacks, okay, who are not able to appreciate how precious, how important, how crucial the support of the French army has been. But obviously, you have some French writers, some of them white, by the way, who have been writing about the failure of the French army there for several reasons: political ones, ideological ones, and many others. Okay, but obviously, if it's a white French who writes the book, it's more reliable, quote unquote, than if it's me, if it's only anti-French. Okay, because now they have this whole narrative saying that Russia has been spreading anti-French sentiment. Okay, Russian has been spreading, quote, anti-French sentiment, unquote, in the brains of Africans. So Africans can basically not think for themselves. They need the Russian to come in and say, "Oh, look at these French; they are very bad." But people were just looking at the results. They were saying they're looking at the result of the so-called counter-terrorism, and they were seeing that the situation has been degraded. I mean, people did not talk about terrorism in Burkina Faso 10 years ago. They didn't talk about it, basically. Now, okay, I wouldn't say any percentage because I don't want the authorities of Burkina Faso to be pissed off, but there's a big chunk of the territory that is controlled by armed groups, by terrorists, basically. Okay, so this was before the French came in. The French first went to Mali in 2013. They started in Mali, but they ended up having military bases everywhere. In Niger,
Wait. They were there. You mean they came back then?
yeah, they came back. They came back.
Because that region didn't just start speaking French in 2013.
Yeah, but some of the military bases have been dismantled.
Right.
So they came
No,
back.
and I'm halfway joking. I'm just pointing out that the fact that the French colonized this region long before them coming back in 2013 is my point.
Oh yeah, they have never left. They have never
Right.
left. You're totally right, because they have never left militarily. They have never left economically, because the currency of those three countries, which is the so-called franc CFA, okay, it is printed and controlled by France. Okay, France now they have made some cosmetic changes in 2019 because people were so outraged. They were saying, how come this currency is controlled and printed by France, and every single economic decision that those countries were making was supposed to be approved by two representatives of the French government who was sitting on the board of those banks. Can you imagine? Those countries couldn't make any decision without the approval of the French government. It was basically they're spying on them. And I'll conclude with that, just to give another example of how French government and army has been present in those countries, and why so many Africans, we're not talking about only a few so-called indoctrinated Russian indoctrinated Africans who are rebelling against, who are displaying some kind of anti-French sentiment. But people need to know, for example, that until 2009, okay, the countries that are using the colonial currency that is called franc CFA, which stands for French Colony of Africa. That's the original. That's the original name.
Hold it. That's
the French Colony of Africa.
That's the money.
That's the money. That's the money that people are still using in 15 countries. But those countries had to deposit. Listen, that had to deposit. It's so shocking. I think even some of our viewers will not believe me. They had to deposit 50% of their export revenues in the French central bank. Like, let's say that you export like 1 billion of oil, okay? 500 million had to be deposited in the French central bank, which can do whatever it wants with that money. Okay, so it was out, So in 2019, the current French President Macron, he said that we're going to implement some measures to make sure that France is not involved in those, internal affairs, internal economic affairs of those countries. So basically, military occupation, okay, under the pretext of fighting terrorism, and also economic control. I mean, economic control. I'm not even talking about political control because we'll need to a whole different session on that. But anyways, people have to follow very closely the developments in the Sahel because unfortunately civilians are going to keep dying. I mean, I'm very sad to say that, but this is the reality. It's basically NATO fighting the governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and also remember that the US had so many military bases in Africa, and those bases, the number of those bases have expanded under the presidency of the first black president in the US, Barack Obama.
But what about the poor Ukraine? Because poor Ukraine, they found their way over there somewhere. Are they there to help the Sahel? I mean, what's going on with that? Because we're hearing that the Ukraine, they have they're in cahoots while
Yeah,
everybody's
exactly.
crying and asking, support Ukraine and these Ukrainians are being attacked by these big bad Russians, so on and so forth. What are Ukrainians doing over there right now? What's
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's a very good question. Ukraine, um, the attitude of the authorities, Ukrainian authorities, reflect the type of disrespect that the West has for the Africans. Because
track?
imagine, 2 years ago when the war in Ukraine started, the Ukrainian embassy posted a public message on its Facebook account recruiting Senegalese people who are willing to go to Ukraine to fight. Public announcement on their Facebook page. Okay.
Mhm.
And more recently, the Ukrainian ambassador has posted another message on Facebook. People in Senegal are very angry now. They're saying, what is this guy doing here? We should have fired him, a long time ago and cut diplomatic relationship with Ukraine. But anyways, Ukraine, we know the war in Ukraine is a war between NATO and basically, I mean, everybody knows that. So Ukraine is doing the dirty work of in West Africa, and they have publicly, said that they will do anything to defeat Russia wherever they are, whether they're in Russia, whether they're in Ukraine, or in Africa. And part of the propaganda narrative that is spread by the media is to say that the situation has become worse because the Africans have had now using the services of the so-called Russian mercenaries, the so-called Wagner group that you guys have probably, I mean, definitely heard of. I mean, it doesn't have the same name anymore, but this is why Ukraine is also so involved. But I think they the bet they're doing there is very dangerous, even for them, because of victims will be because people in the continent, we just see them as oppressors who are involved in the killing of soldiers from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger who are fighting terrorism, and also identify them. I mean, at least geopolitically as what they are. I mean, the allies of the West, and not only allies, but also the ones who are willing to do the dirty job, quote unquote, for the West in West Africa. And this is something that is very preoccupying. I mean, the war is going to intensify, and people need to make sure that they get a reliable source of information, because I would say that 95% of the information that we'll get is propaganda, because some of the media that are not preaching the gospel of the Western propaganda have been banned basically from the West. I'm not going to mention those media outlets because I'll be in trouble. But anyways, this part also this is also part of the realities that people have to be aware of. Ukraine is a subcontractor of the NATO war in Western Africa, and NATO's attempt to reconquer an area which it has always considered as its own area, first by France, but now France and US are somehow they are allies, but they're also fighting each other at the same time. Okay,
Right.
when the
They
army was
just
kicked out of Niger, the US government was actually very happy. They were happy until the authorities of Niger asked the US also to close their drone base in the northern part of Niger, in Nagares, which was, because now it's supposed to have closed, the largest or the second largest drone base in the world.
Right on, right on. So definitely appreciate you giving us that, and that's why it's important for us to bring this type of news and information to the people. And it's important when we say that we're an international platform that we that we keep that in the move. I asked you about the Ukraine because I know that Colombia recently introduced a law delegitimizing the hiring of mercenaries. Because we talk about mercenaries and whatnot, that's one of the things that you spoke about. And of course, you have mercenaries in Colombia and other places that are trained by, in many cases, by folks who are right here in the United States with the School of Americas, who's right here in Georgia. You know what I mean? So, and we'll talk about the connection between the School of America and Cop City. Also, these Israeli soldiers as well. But here, as you see, this is X or Twitter. I don't know if y'all can see that too good. I don't know how much I can enlarge it. But
it's in Spanish.
Yeah. It's in Spanish, but we're gonna learn today. How about that? So so basically, this is from the Colombian Foreign Minister Luis Gilberto Murillo, and he announced on Thursday that the Colombian administration has sent a measure to Congress that would outlaw the hiring of mercenaries inside of the country. So here on X or Twitter, he posted in English, it says, "Today we submit to Congress the bill that would approve the International Convention against the Recruitment, Use, Financing, and Training of Mercenaries. This instrument is essential to prevent our compatriots from being involved in external conflicts, safeguarding their safety and protecting their lives." A video of a arrested Colombian mercenary by the name of Angel Montilla, who served with the Ukrainian military, was made public by the Russian Defense Ministry at the beginning of June. Let me switch this piece for you real quick. So a video they talked about a particular. Give me 1 second. Let me see here. Okay. Does everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it has the same name as Fernando Cárdenas.
Yeah. could they be related? What's going on? What you saying?
Fernando is not from Colombia. They're not related.
Oh, so you're not related. We got to double check on that. But anyway, shout out to Fernando. But basically, the video of the arrested Colombian mercenary who served with the Ukrainian military was made public by the Russian Defense Ministry. And basically, Montillo claimed that he had been tricked by his Ukrainian handlers into believing he would be helping to secure a rear facility, but they had all actually sent him to the front. So they told him that, you would be securing the background or whatever these Ukrainians said or whatever, and that he ended up on the front line. So basically, he had arrived. He said that when he arrived in Ukraine, after responding to a TikTok advertisement recruiting mercenaries to fight against Russia. Now, you just talked about Facebook and how, who was it, the Senegalese that you said that was recruiting through Facebook?
Yeah. They posted a public advertisement on their Facebook page saying that they were recruiting people. It was in the ambassador of Ukraine in Senegal.
Right. So the Ukraine, as you can see, you mentioned Facebook. They put up an ad on TikTok as well. So this is how they're using their social media. And I'm sure their social media is not getting shut down. But we can say one little thing and it's going to be a wrap. But he responded, this quote unquote Colombian cat responded to a TikTok advertisement recruiting mercenaries to fight against Russia. And he said after receiving only expedited basic training, Montilla said the foreign recruits, like him, lacked a clear understanding of their circumstances, making them easy targets for deception by the Ukrainian command. He also said that he had not received the promised initial salary. Now, what does that sound like? So here it is,
Like the
mercenaries,
Kenyans in Haiti.
the Kenyans in Haiti. So they just sucking us all over the world. So here it is, this Colombian who decided that he was going to be a mercenary. He was going to get hired. So what they do is they're looking for folks who want to have some type of an allegiance, folks who want to be looked at as patriots and want to be accepted by these Europeans and in some cases Asians and of course the U.S. But they're not giving him what they said he was going to get. He said he didn't receive his loot. You know what I mean? Just like the Kenyans, who we was laughing at the other day. They sent you Kenyans, dark-skinned Africans, to Haiti to take care of the savages, to handle the gangs and all that type of stuff. When in reality, you were running dogs for the state. So back in March,
these issues are sorry to cut you off. Just
so
want to
good.
say before I forget, these issues are interconnected because remember the former president of Haiti was assassinated by Colombian mercenaries. Remember?
Absolutely. And
Juvenal
those
Moïse.
Colombian, that's right. So those Colombian mercenaries, again, many of them were trained right here in the United States at the School of Americas. And remember, they were saying it was some company out of Florida that hired them. You know what I'm saying? So when we dig deep, we'll find that all of this shit is interconnected. Like I said, from this to Cop City to the Israeli troops, so on and so forth, they're all in the same gang, but we're looking at it from a cursory glance and we're saying, oh, you know what I mean? We got to stop Cop City. That's a simple term. That's a simple way of just saying that we're going to protest and we're going to sign some petitions and all that shit. That's not going to stop the mercenaries. That's not going to stop the School of Americas. That's not going to stop the Israeli soldiers. That is why Dr. Joy James and I'm going to do this selfish plug right here, came with this whole Beyond Cop Cities, because it's not about just just some simplistic we're going to get together and we're going to march the big bad enemy away. It don't go like that. But anyway, it said that back in March, Russia revealed that 13,000 foreigners had fought for Kyiv and around 6,000 had died. They said the Ukrainians also say that their international legion is constituted of around 20,000 fighters from 50 countries. Did y'all hear what I just said? The Ukrainians said that their particular legion is constituted of around 20,000 fighters from 50 countries. So it's not just, as you mentioned earlier, the U.S. versus Russia. It's not just Russia versus the Ukraine. It's the Ukraine versus everybody. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's everybody versus Russia, or everybody against the Sahel, or whatever the case is, whoever they decide they're running up on. It is worth mentioning that the head of the delegation of the Russian Federation to the Vienna negotiations on military security and arms control, this cat Konstantin, said, quoted by the Russian newspaper Izvestia earlier in June, they said that there are 92 foreign sabotage and reconnaissance groups operating in the Ukraine, including 14 American ones, as per available data, which the Pentagon confirmed in open sources. So the Pentagon confirmed that there are at least 14 different reconnaissance groups and sabotage groups that are American operating on behalf of with the Ukraine. So this is what's happening in real time. When we talk about war, when we talk about the Ukraine, you mentioned, it's really, Russia versus NATO. It's Russia versus NATO. It's Russia versus the UN. It's Russia versus the US. And the Ukraine is being used as a tool, and they're getting their asses handed to them because they're spreading themselves out and they're trying to come in with all these other forces who they don't respect. Let's be clear about that. Because again, as you stated a little while ago, the Kenyans didn't get their check. The Colombians complaining about they didn't get their check. Y'all some suckers. You cannot get in bed with imperialist forces. You can't get in bed with these colonial regimes and think that they are going to somehow exalt you Now, in some cases, they will make you the president of this country, the governor of that country, the ambassador of this country, whatever, as long as you continue to do what they want you to do, as long as you're going to be a robot, right? But if you're not a robot and you try to get out of line, eventually they'll take you out.
Mm.
That's the
You know,
rules. That's the law. Yeah.
one
Go
last
ahead.
thing. One last thing I forgot to mention before letting Isaac. I think he also want to say something.
As it look like he's
Uh,
getting happy over there. He's like, you
yeah,
talking
very,
about
very,
language.
very, very quickly because I think it's something important that I forgot. One of the reasons why those weapons.
You froze, bro. As soon as you about to get busy, bonus froze. So we do.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
France was like, you ain't about to say shit. But go ahead.
You see, we've been. This is Cointel Pro.
Nah,
2000
they got your microphone tapped, bro.
chat.
But
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
But anyways, what I want to say is that one of the reasons why those weapons end up in countries like Mali is because of the corruption in Ukraine. Okay, there's
Right.
so much corruption, and if you remember, a few months ago, it was last year, Zelensky had sacked the president of Ukraine had sacked members of his own staff who were accused of, corruption. And there were some reports when the war and when the genocide in Gaza started, there were some reports suggesting that some of the weapons that are used in Gaza actually came from Ukraine. That it ended up in the hands of the Palestinians while fighting the genocide there in Gaza and elsewhere.
So they have
Anyway.
no allegiance. They like whatever. Like anybody
That's
get it.
They will sell to anyone who's interested.
Amen. In one of the rappers, Freddie Fox, he said, "A pimp will sell his own as if his hoe won't." So anyway, go ahead, Isaac. What you got to say?
I think you guys said everything that needs to be said. To answer questions that were asked, what is Ukraine's interest, in Africa? It's the same interest that America has. It's the same interest that I could even say, slightly that Russia has. It's the same interest that I could say slightly that China has, that everybody has. It's
Not
interest
slightly, all the way.
all the way of resources. Well, because like when you get on that tip in that talking point, people want to classify that as like, oh, that's Russophobia, or though that's a xenophobia, because you're classifying or highlighting the fact that, okay, well, just because it's not American imperialism, doesn't mean it's not imperialism. If someone is enacting or working in a capitalist interest in mode, and we know that it degrades and exploits the African masses, we gotta do that. I don't care how much money they're doing it, because when you look at when even China works in with African countries, they use US dollars. So they're not wanting to do it in a way that completely combats the system as a whole. But even then, so it's about resources. We just seen right now, I believe it was 2 days ago actually, that Burkina Faso took control of their gold mines. We know that 30% of French's of the Frenchies electricity is gone. I feel bad for you guys, Buna.
Buna, they took your electricity, man. What's up, bro? How we gonna be talking to you on the damn platform if they take the electricity?
Yeah, that's why I got frozen for a while.
We got to get you a solar mic. We got to get Buna solar mics. But go ahead.
And you guys made the correct, correlation between, Israel, Palestine, Haiti, all of these atrocities that when you look to its root, cause and where it comes from, it's American global imperialism. So while we're saying, that we should be standing in solidarity with Russia because they're packing up Nazis in the Donbass region, we also should be holding Russians accountable and Russia accountable for wanting to not to be the only said imperialist power. Again, we're dealing with two imperialist powers. So it's not like we're dealing with just America, and America inflicts all this terror and they do in famine and destruction onto countries, but Russia in some aspects still works in reciprocity to work within a capitalist mode, the same way that I would have to say China does. I'm going to take some heat for that, but I'm calling it how I see it. Africa, the motherland, has resources that you cannot find elsewhere. And so what do they do under the modes of capitalism? They use neo-colonialism to sweep in, and exploit, our countries, where our ancestors derive from, and we're here now. So I'll leave it at that. I'll wrap it up. That's my version of the Boona report. So I just want to
Boona, and so Boona, you inherited Dr. Horn, and shout out to Dr. Horn. He just he recently invited me onto his show, so you know what I'm saying. So I guess I might be moving up in the world, so I might have to leave y'all one day. Now, but but shout out to Dr. Gerald Horn for we appreciate the invitation, and we appreciate you coming on. And hopefully you'll be back on soon. But to your point, we quote Dr. John Henrik Clarke, we have no friends. You know what I mean? So we can pretend all we want to. And I hear some people always talking about, well, my enemy's enemy is my friend. Sometimes your enemy's enemy is your enemy too. You know what I'm saying? We must be properly understood. Africa is like the mammy. It's the mammy for the world. The resources. People have parlayed empires off of stolen resources from the continent. The continent has been raped, it has been pillaged, it's been so on and so forth. So don't let them fool you. Don't let them think that it's just French, the U.S. and the Portuguese. It's the Spaniards. It's China. You know what I'm saying? It's Russia, so on and so forth. Indeed, there's been a little more leeway in certain spaces, but let's not act like we live in this harmonious world where everyone loves African and everyone's going to treat you right. I know that you all talked about. You all talked about. I believe it was Fernando talking about the abolishment of slavery in Brazil and in Cuba. It wasn't that long ago that it was abolished. And I believe that Cuba was the second to the last country for slavery to become abolished. So don't just look at Fidel and Che and say that's what Cuba is, because there's a lot of racism in Cuba as well. There's a lot of racist white folks or Europeans inside of Cuba that care less about you as well. So don't get it twisted. And that's not to say. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll even throw out there that there's people that work within our diaspora that share the same ideologies that we do, that like to put that to the wayside. So they would rather be walked around Cuba by a bunch of gusanos than to actually venture out. And hopefully I'm speaking respectfully for our brother Fernando, who's not here to represent himself to be able to talk about this said topic. But I will recognize the fact that we have individuals that have taken multitude of trips that do not like to talk about the anti-blackness that is within Cuba, even though Cuba is one of the meccas for socialism. The help that they have, as Boona has referenced in the past, with doctors and whatnot on this channel, on this show. But we also have to, realize that, and that's a beautiful thing about Fernando's show, Havana Negra, is that they take a different approach, a Pan-Africanist approach to getting Cubans to understand what's going on, and doing it in a way, because I wasn't aware, and this is through Fernando telling me this, that there really isn't a curriculum for slavery or for Black, Afro-Cubans. And so that shocked me, being that, when we talk about Cuba, you think, okay, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, like these individuals, when you look at them, you think, okay, well, they embody the anti-racist, the anti-hegemonic aesthetics, through years of individuals propagating their names within that said, talking space. And so, it dumbfounded me, and it dumbfounds me even more, when I hear individuals that talk about Cuba and they never want to reference the anti-blackness. They never want to reference the history of the massacre that happened in the early 1900s. Never want to mention that. So that's where I'll land my 747.
Well, guess what?
I would slightly disagree with you guys on 2 points. I think we also have to well, first of all, I think Dr. Henry Clark quote about us not having friends, I think it has been interpreted in a way that can, be at odds with our own geopolitical interests. But obviously, we don't have time to discuss that. We can have it. I mean, we can have that discussion on a separate show. Because if you take the example of Cuba, for example, you don't have any nation that has sent so many of its children, okay, to liberate an African continent. I mean, this is something that we have to bear in mind because
Oh yeah.
it's also a country that
Before you go there, and respectfully, I definitely understand what you're saying. I'm not. Again, we're separating. We're not talking about the socialist Cuban. We're not
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
I know, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
interconnected. Just,
Okay.
yeah, I will just, yeah. So the second issue is that there is no, I don't know any country where anti-blackness is not
It
prevalent.
doesn't exist. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then when we, from that, we, extrapolate what Dr. Henry Clark has said about us having no friends, I think one of the risks is that we can find ourselves in an objective alliance with US imperialism. I'm not suggesting that this is something that we're doing here on this show,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
those countries have been so much under heavy attack of US imperialism
Absolutely.
that I think some of the narratives that are feeding, that US discourse, whether it's conscious or not, I think it's not going in the right direction. I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about anti-blackness in Cuba, but you look at the Cubans who are exiled in Western countries. They never talk about racism in the country where they're living.
Right.
You don't hear them talk about not only anti-blackness, but the black people who are getting killed in the countries where they have been given exile. This is something that we have discussed with Fernando. You have a lot of black and white Cubans. Of course, we know the fascists who are living in in Florida. Those people, they don't care about blacks or whites. They are just pro-imperialist. So one of the issues that I have is that some of and this is not applicable only to the Cubans, by the way. So many of those who come to these countries are migrants. Sometimes they just feel that they're in paradise. So whatever is affecting the global African family is not relevant to them. It's something that can threaten their own material benefits. And the second point, which I wanted to highlight, I don't know if it's a contradiction with what you guys have said. You can never compare. I'm not saying that China and Russia are not pursuing their own interests. I mean, if I were China or Russia, I would have done the same thing. Okay, I mean, not against African people because I'm African myself, but state have no friends. This is something that is very clear. So I'd agree with Dr. Henry Clark on that point. And I don't think that the Africans are naive enough to assume that China and Russia don't have their own interests. But in my view, you can never, ever, ever compare the impact, the roots, and also the impact of US and Western imperialism in Africa as compared to China and Russia. Okay,
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Oh
historically
no, yeah,
it's totally different.
yeah. I don't think necessarily we were doing that. I was saying in the context of particularly. I mean, for example, let's look at it. You know, for this example, walnuts are exiled from this conversation. You have 5 walnuts. I have 3 walnuts. Kalanji has 10 walnuts. Okay, you know, we don't reference the fact of the matter is that walnuts are outlawed. So regardless of the fact of who has more walnuts or not, we still have to highlight that we all can have fucking walnuts that we shouldn't fucking have. And so that's like the point that I was making. If that makes sense, I have a habit of making stupid ass
Oh no.
examples. So
We all do, and we about to wrap. But I understand.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this. I understand your argument. You know what I mean. But it's not as simplified as we've all made it. You understand what I'm saying? So I
Mm.
get what you're saying. I'm never a parent. I'm never
I actually
comparing.
agree with you. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, indeed. No, so that it is true what you're saying. But we're definitely not comparing oppression, domination, whatever. If it's like rape, right? and I hate to use this analogy, but I'm gonna go there a little bit, right? If someone's being forcibly raped violently, and then someone else, is being date raped, they're being kissed on, whatever, I really love you, so on and so forth. The object is not to get raped.
Right.
It's not, well, at least he was nice to me and he bought me dinner and then he did all this shit. No, I don't want to be raped. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying that these different forces are raping the continent, whatever way they try to do it, whether they do it in a nice way, whether they carve it up like the Berlin Conference, or whether they just come in and say, I'm just going to take it. You understand what I'm saying? Either way, they came and they took it. But my point is saying what you're saying, comrade, and I appreciate you bringing up this point, because we all have to look at it from these different angles. But one of the things, I was talking to the Ruba one day, and I'm going to have him on here for clarity, but one of the things we was talking about is why certain people went to Cuba first and then they left because of the racism. So they had to go to Tanzania and other places. Folks like Sekou, I believe, and folks like I believe Stokely. Yes, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. They didn't stay in Cuba for a reason. It wasn't that they were welcome, but at the same time, they had to deal with certain forces or whatever that were racist. We're not putting a blanket statement. We never do that as African people. We're never going to say that all of you are this, or because you're Cuban, you're this. That's what crackers do. That's what the state does. That's what imperialists does. They say that anybody black is an issue. You understand what I'm saying? Any African is a problem. That's not what we're saying at all. I'm just saying, I think we're saying we point out the contradictions, because what happens is we will be tricked and fooled into believing that these folks have love for us because they didn't do it like these other folks did it. You understand what I'm saying? Like you said, their main objective is self-interest. It's not to help Africa grow. Now, again, there are certain forces like Cuba, like when you talk about Fidel, who sent forces into these different places and whatnot, into Angola, etc. People like Che, so on and so forth. Those are exceptions to the rule. They're not the rule. Yes, the free medical care, so on and so forth. There are definitely forces that are working in our best interests. So we're not, how do you say it? We're not throwing a blanket statement on it and saying that all of this is fucked up. We're saying that Africans, you know what I'm saying, should definitely have our interests in hand. And indeed, we're going to support Native and indigenous people from all over the planet. We are against colonization no matter where it's at. We're against colonialism no matter where it's at. Not just because of your complexion. And we can move out there a little bit, and some folks be like, hold on, what you mean? You understand what I'm saying? Because there are some white folks, the Sylvia Beraldinis. There are some folks, the Maryland Bucks or whatever, who help to fight on behalf of us, of African people, Black Liberation Army, so on and so forth, that continued on. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So we will be back at you, but we appreciate you, Boona and Isaac, and I definitely want to continue this convo for another time, because it is definitely important. And I appreciate you raising the criticism, because this is what we're supposed to do. And for the viewers, we're not all in unison. We're not all from the same organization. We don't all have the full same belief system.
We're not all German,
page, but we're in the same book. What'd you say?
What'd you say? All German Kalanji.
On that note, we getting the hell out of here because of Boona. We about to be beefing. Rise up. We out of here.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one, or the battle is to love yourself and function in society, where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces when it's on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. build revolution.